The Vatican says Pope Francis has developed bilateral pneumonia. That is kind of the nightmare scenarios that doctors had feared after he was hospitalized last week. He is also battling asthmatic bronchitis that requires a cortisone antibiotic treatment, and the Vatican says that is complicating the therapeutic recovery. Nevertheless, we understand Pope Francis is in good spirits. He had breakfast and is reading the newspapers, doing a little bit of work, and in the afternoon received some drawings from the children who are being treated at the Gemelli Hospital's pediatric ward in a sign that they too are praying for him.
A local imam and a faith healer, Ajaz Sheikh, who sexually abused minor children or minors for over 3 decades in the Sopore area of Indian Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, has finally been convicted after a decade-long legal battle. The local court convicted the infamous pedophile, bringing relief to the hundreds of victims in that case. Here's a report.
Sheikh misused the trust people had in the positions he held as an imam, teacher and faith healer in the area. It is one of the reasons due to which he could sexually abuse children for over 30 years and never get caught. There are thousands of victims of Sheikh's abuse in the district, and some of them have shared their horrific abuse tales. The court has on Tuesday decided to sentence the convict to 14 years of imprisonment, 7 years each in 2 cases of the 2 victims. He will have to pay a fine of 50,000 rupees to each of the victims as well. The victims are also at liberty to approach authorities for the compensation.
The learned CJM Sopore sentenced the accused to 7 years of rigorous imprisonment, each for 2 victims. In this case, and the sentences will run consecutively, which is that he will be in for 14 years of rigorous imprisonment plus 50,000 rupees fine for each of the victims.
One of the victims in the case had revealed in the court of being raped for over 500 times by the faith healer over a period of 3 years, later developing some serious health issues. And in some cases, the convict used to ask the minor children to get involved in sexual acts while he would watch. Some of the victims were less than 10 years of age and were forced to do violent assaults.
Ajaz Sheikh को hire किया गया था.
He was hired as a Quran teacher. He would choose and take kids with him. He would tell the parents that there is black magic in the family and he would need the child below 12 years of age to stay with him, as he would want them to speak to jinns and heal them.
The first FIR against the Sheikh was filed on March 2, 2016. A year later, a charge sheet was produced against him, and since then the legal battle has been going on. The defense lawyers made their arguments in January this year. Over the course of time, the case saw many replacements. The judges were replaced 6 times, while the prosecutors were changed 4 times as well.
This case was filed in the Bomai area of Sopore in the year 2016 under Section 377. This convict was involved in sexual exploitation of children under the age of 18 and would harass those children by not revealing it to their parents.
बहुत सारे बच्चों के साथ जो कम सिन बच्चे थे. Conviction of a fake faith healer by a local court has come as a big relief for the hundreds of victims who were sexually abused by him over a period of 3 decades. But the real question is whether this judgment will be an eye-opener for all those people who put their faith blindly into these fake faith healers. With video journalist Feroz Idris Lone for WION World.
Now, Israeli troops have withdrawn from Lebanon under a ceasefire deadline.
Well, this pullout has allowed many displaced residents to return to devastated border villages after more than a year of hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah.
It has also enabled emergency services to retrieve the bodies from previously inaccessible areas. Lebanon Civil Defense has recovered 23 bodies from border towns after the withdrawal. The returning Lebanese say they have come back to find total destruction. Displaced residents walked into their hometowns to find piles of rubble and their homes destroyed. Israeli forces have withdrawn from border villages including southeast Lebanon's Odaise and Kafar Kila, Mais al-Jabar, Markaba and Hula.
Lebanese leaders are pressing Israel to fully withdraw, calling its continued presence in 5 places an occupation. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has said the government is in contact with truce brokers, US and France, to make Israel withdraw. The UN has called the incomplete pullout a violation of a Security Council resolution, and the Lebanese government has declared that it will ask the UNSC to require Israel to leave.
First, to refer to the UN Security Council, which approved Resolution 1701, and urge it take the necessary measures to address the Israeli violations and compel Israel to immediately withdraw to the international borders in compliance with the UN resolution.
Now, Israel announced just before the deadline that it would keep troops in 5 strategic points near the border. The army said that they were hilltops overlooking the frontiers where troops would remain to make sure there's no immediate threat.
Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said they would withdraw once Lebanon implements its side of the deal. Now, this ceasefire development comes ahead of the funeral of slain Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah and his chosen successor Hashim Safieddin. Nasrallah was killed in an Israeli airstrike on the 27th of September last year as Israel scaled up its campaign against Hezbollah. Beirut airport will be closed for 4 hours on Sunday during the funeral.
Now, Europe is more worried about Donald Trump than Vladimir Putin. As American and Russian diplomats meet in Riyadh, the coming together has caused a lot of unease in Europe.
And that definitely feels it's been sidelined, and Washington's moves are further emboldening Moscow. This is the sentiment in Europe. The next report brings the anxiety that has gripped European capitals. Take a look.
The war in Ukraine is raging. Europe stands at a crossroads. NATO faces its biggest test yet. Will the US abandon the security pact? There's a growing concern that US President Donald Trump may scale back or entirely withdraw American troops from Europe, particularly the Baltics, where it has more than 5,000 soldiers. Trump's willingness to consider withdrawing troops from Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania has sent shockwaves across the continent. European officials see this as a major security risk. In total, there are about 100,000 American troops in Europe. The US also has an estimated 100 B-61 nuclear gravity bombs that are forward deployed at 6 NATO bases in 5 European countries. The implications are stark: a potentially weaker NATO, an emboldened Russia, and deepening rifts within the European Union over how to respond. Moscow, which has the upper hand on the battlefield, is now demanding that Ukraine should be a demilitarized neutral state outside any alliances.
The future of Ukraine needs to be a demilitarized neutral state, not a part of any blocs or alliances, for as has already been acknowledged by a US colleague, now specifically President Trump. It is indeed the prospect of the entry of Ukraine into NATO which triggered the crisis. And I think that this is now clear to all.
Kyiv is rejecting these conditions, warning that without security guarantees, Russia could launch another invasion, a sentiment echoed by European leaders.
And I'm prepared to consider committing British forces on the ground, alongside others, if there is a lasting peace agreement. But there must be a US backstop, because a US security guarantee is the only way to effectively deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again.
The most important thing about this meeting tonight is the need for all of us to step up when it comes to our spendings on defense. Russia is not only a threat to Ukraine, but all of us. So we need to scale up and we need to speed up.
An emergency meeting in Paris saw European leaders scramble for a united response, but Germany rejected calls by France and Britain to send troops to Ukraine. As European leaders grapple with their response, options range from dramatically increased defense spending to reduce US dependency to providing direct security guarantees to Ukraine. Yet each proposal faces resistance, highlighting the challenge of forging consensus in a fragmented Europe. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Moving on to East Africa now, where US airstrikes launched a major operation against the Islamic State in Somalia. Now, Somali officials say US airstrikes killed at least 16 Islamic State terrorists in Godka-Kunle and in Jankukin in the Bari region in Somalia's Puntland. Somali authorities in Puntland say among the 16 terrorists killed were also 2 senior Islamic State members who were bomb makers. The US strikes also destroyed an Islamic State bomb factory. Somali officials say the United Arab Emirates also played a crucial role in the operation by helping the US with surveillance and intelligence for these strikes. Somali officials added that during the airstrikes, Islamic State terrorists launched drone attacks targeting bases of the Puntland security forces in the area. This is the second such strike in a month by the United States and also the second under US President Donald Trump's new term. In his first tenure, Trump bombed terrorists in Somalia nearly 150 times. There were strikes under Democrat Joe Biden as well. However, the number during Biden's term was far lower. It stood at 40. Trump had earlier ordered an airstrike on Islamic State in Somalia on the 3rd of February. He also released a video that showed US forced bombing caves that were housing Islamic State terrorists. And reports say it was a direct hit and 14 terrorists were reportedly killed. Somalia's President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud thanked the US for its strike. He called Trump's leadership bold and decisive. He also said that Somalia and the US had a shared fight against terrorism. Somalia has been fighting terror groups for years. The most infamous here has been Al-Shabaab, an affiliate of the Al-Qaeda. Al-Shabaab, which has a larger presence in Somalia than the Islamic State, has been waging war on the Somali government since 2012. In 2015, Al-Shabaab split and some fighters joined hands with the Islamic State, giving birth to the faction called the Islamic State Somalia Province. This faction, based in Puntland, an autonomous region in Somalia, has been the target of US strikes. In 2020, right before he left office, Trump ordered the withdrawal of the US troops from Somalia. Joe Biden had reversed this order when he took over. Now back in office in 2025, has Trump returned with a renewed strategy in Africa against terrorism? We will see in the days to come.